Evaluate the following, and then we have 5 multiplication problems. Let's do them from left to right. Let's start with 12 times 12. Some of you may have this memorized, but in case your multiplication tables didn't go that high, we're going to write it out. 12 times 12. Now, as always, we're going to start with the rightmost digit in the bottom row. That's 2, and we're going to multiply it by the digits in the top. 2 times 2 gives us 4, and then 2 times 1 gives us 2, so that gives us 24. Now, when we move over to the 1, because that's the tens place, to make our answer start in the tens place, we're going to have to put a 0 here as a placeholder. Then we can multiply the 1. 1 times 2 gives us 2. And then 1 times 1 gives us 1. And then we add the 2 rows from right to left. 4 plus 0 is 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. Bring down the 1, and we get 144, which is probably what many of you remember from your times tables. So here we have 144. Let's look at the next one. Negative 11 times 21. Here we have a negative times a positive, and we have to take into account the rules for multiplying when we have negative numbers. And they're different from the rules when we were adding and subtracting with negative numbers. So with multiplication, the rule is as follows. If they have the same sign, it's going to end up being a positive answer. And if they have a different sign, it's going to be a negative answer. So in this case, the numbers have different signs. We've got a negative and a positive. So because they have different signs, we know our final answer is going to end up being negative. Let's keep that in mind. And for right now, when we set up the multiplication, we're going to actually ignore that negative. So I'm going to have 11 times 21. We'll do it just like that. And then in the end, remember that we know our answer should be negative. Let's do the multiplication. 1 times 1 is 1. Again, 1 times this one is also 1. We need to put in a 0 as a placeholder for when we multiply the 2. 2 times 1 is 2. And then 2 times 1 again is another 2. And when we add these, we get a 1 and a 3 and a 2. So 231. But we have to remember our answer is negative because when they have different signs, the answer is negative. So our final answer here is going to be negative 231. All right, let's continue. 3 times negative 678. Remember, when a number is written next to a parenthesis without an addition or a subtraction or a division sign, that means multiplication. Now, we're going to set this up with the number that has more digits. Going first, 678 times 3. We're going to ignore that negative until the end. Let's do the multiplication. 8 times 3 is 24. Carry the 2. 7 times 3 is 21. And when we add that 2, that gives us 23. Carrying the 2 from that 20 to the next row, to the next column. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 2 gives us 20. So we have 2034. However, the numbers we were multiplying had different signs. We've got a positive times a negative, and that's going to end up giving us a negative answer. So our final answer here is going to be negative 2034. All right, let's continue. Negative 14 times negative 16. Here we have a negative times a negative, and since they have the same sign, the answer is going to be positive. Those negatives are going to cancel each other out in the end. All right, let's set things up. We've got 14 times 16. You could just as easily write it 16 times 14. Remember, with multiplication, the order doesn't matter. We just tend to try and put the fewest digits in the second row, but here they both have 2 digits. Let's do our multiplying. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry that 2. Then 6 times 1 is 6, and we add the 2 to give us 8. Now we bring down a 0 for when we move over to the tens place, and that 1 times 4 gives us 4. 1 times 1 gives us 1. And when we add them, we've got a 4 there. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 224, and we said that the answer would be positive because the signs were the same. A negative times a negative gives us a positive, and so our final answer is positive 224. All right, lastly, we have 0 times 1,234,567, which looks crazy, but we're here to prove a point. Let's write this out. 1,234,567 times 0. 0 times 7 is 0. 0 times 6 is 0. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. The answer is just 0. And the rule here is that whenever we're multiplying any number times 0, the answer is going to be 0. So you don't have to write out a problem like this and multiply 0 by all the different digits. You can just follow the rule. Anything times 0 is 0.